I knew who she was before she ever spoke to me. Everyone in the department knew Mia Collins. Scholarship, 3 jobs, top of every ranking board. The kind of person who walked into a room and immediately made everyone else aware of how much they weren't trying. I was the thing she despised most. Old money, easy confidence, a last name that opened doors she had to build herself. I knew exactly what she thought of me, and I didn't particularly care. Until the day she stood up in Professor Holloway's seminar and dismantled my pitch in 4 minutes with the quiet precision of someone twice her age. The class voted for her idea. She sat back down without looking at me. I looked at her for a long time. That was week 1. By week 3, we were enemies in the specific way that only happens between 2 people who are too similar to admit it. Junior year, October, my father froze my accounts. He wanted me home. I refused. He decided my bank balance was more persuasive than anything he could say out loud. I had options, places I could have stayed, people I could have called. But when the housing office read me the room assignment, I didn't correct it. Mia Collins, room 12. I showed up at her door with 1 suitcase and the straightest face I have ever held in my life. Because in my jacket pocket was a folded piece of paper I had found on the shared printer 3 days earlier, and I needed her not to know that I had it. Her name at the top, my name halfway down. 3 pages of evidence she had built for the anonymous complaint that had nearly ended my academic career 8 months ago. She opened the door, looked at my suitcase, looked at me. The expression on her face was the specific look of someone who believes the universe has a personal vendetta against them. She let me in anyway, stood at the doorway, and delivered her rules like a general briefing before battle. Food, space, schedule, the yellow mug on the 3rd shelf, chipped handle, apparently irreplaceable, mine to never touch for as long as I lived under her roof. I agreed to everything, walked into her apartment, and looked at the life she had built in that small, warm space. Plants on every windowsill with handwritten notes on them, design sketches covering every wall. Books in careful, deliberate stacks. 3 half-finished coffees on the desk like she had started one, gotten pulled away, started another, forgotten that one too. I put my suitcase down in the second room, sat on the edge of the bed, and made the decision that changed everything. I was not going to say a word about that email. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Here is what nobody knew about the plagiarism case. Not the university. Not the investigating committee. Not the lawyer my father hired the moment the complaint landed. The paper they said I had stolen, I had written it. Jointly, with my closest friend of 4 years. An entire semester of late nights, his apartment, the 2 of us building something from nothing. When we finished, we made an agreement. His name would go on it for a graduate application he needed the publication credit for. Mine would stay off because I didn't need it at the time. Trust. For years of it. A handshake and a promise. 6 months later, he submitted it alone to a different database, and it flagged as duplicate work. When the investigation started, I had one choice that would have cleared me immediately. Say his name. I couldn't do it. So I stayed quiet. Sat through 3 weeks of investigation. Let the lawyer work the technical discrepancies. Let my father be furious in the background. Let my reputation hang in a room I wasn't allowed to enter to defend. I was cleared eventually. The technical evidence was enough. I never said his name once. Mia Collins had filed that complaint in good faith. Real evidence. Real instincts. She had done exactly what she should have done. She just had the wrong person for the right reasons. I had moved into her apartment knowing every single part of this. And I had decided not to say a word because for 3 years, I had been watching Mia Collins from the wrong side of competition, and I wanted to understand what she was actually like when nobody was watching. I already knew I was in trouble. I just didn't know how much yet. The first week was a carefully choreographed silence. Separate shelves. Timed kitchen visits. The strip of tape she pressed down the middle of the living room floor on day 4 with the calm authority of someone drawing a border between 2 nations. I woke up that morning, walked out, stood at the edge of it, picked up my coffee mug, and placed it 1 centimeter onto her side. Sat down, opened my laptop, waited. She came out, made her coffee, turned around, saw the mug, looked at me with the expression of someone deciding whether to accept a challenge. She went to her room, came back, left a sticky note on my mug. Try me. Walked out the door. I looked at that note for a long time after she left. Then I smiled in an empty apartment for the first time in weeks. What followed was 2 weeks of the most entertaining warfare of my entire life. Her textbooks cling wrapped on a Monday morning before she woke up. Every clock in the apartment moved forward by 11 minutes. Not 10, specifically 11, calibrated to make the wrongness harder to calculate. A Bluetooth speaker hidden in my gym bag set to detonate in the quietest section of the main library. Her laptop autocorrect silently reprogrammed so that every that became absolutely not, which her professor called a bold stylistic choice and rewarded with extra marks. Neither of us acknowledged any of it. That was the rule we had never agreed to, but both understood perfectly. But I started noticing things I hadn't been looking for. The way she ate standing at the kitchen counter when she was stressed. Sitting down felt like wasting time she didn't have. The Sunday evening calls home, her voice dropping lower and softer than it ever went anywhere else, carefully editing things out before she said them so her mother wouldn't worry. The 3 jobs she never mentioned as anything other than logistics. The plants she spoke to every morning, not conversations, just small acknowledgments. Looking good. Keep it up. Almost there. I started leaving the kitchen light on when I went to bed late. Started making 2 coffees in the morning. Stopped explaining it to myself. The mug was my favorite moment. I moved it to the top shelf of the kitchen cabinet one afternoon. Not hidden, just elevated, just beyond the reach of someone who was 5'3". I positioned myself in the living room with a book and waited. She came into the kitchen, opened the cabinet, went completely still. What followed was a 4-minute operation involving 3 jump attempts, the retrieval of her desk chair, and the final triumphant extraction of the mug from the top shelf, conducted with the focused dignity of someone absolutely refusing to ask for help. When she finally turned around with it, I was reading my book with complete concentration. She looked at me for a long moment. "You think you're very funny. Just reading," I told her. She made her coffee and went to her room, and I heard her laugh once the door closed. That sound went somewhere in my chest and stayed there. Week 5, she had the presentation. 3 weeks of preparation. Department head review. The kind of opportunity that determines what opens and what closes permanently. Her desk light was on every night I came home. The apartment smelled like coffee constantly. She never complained about being tired, never used it as currency, just kept moving forward with that relentless, quiet momentum of hers. I deleted her folder by accident at 11 on a Wednesday night. Share drive. Adjacent folders. Tired and not paying attention. I realized within 30 seconds. Check the trash. Auto empty. Gone. 3 weeks. Gone. I sat with that for a while. Then I went to her laptop and opened the partial draft from 2 weeks earlier and started working. I knew the argument she was making. I had heard her thinking through it out loud at midnight, pacing the living room in the way she paced when something wasn't sitting right yet. I knew the structure. I knew the direction. I knew things about her work that I had no business knowing, absorbed through weeks of proximity and the specific kind of attention that happens when you stop pretending you're not paying it. 4 hours later, she walked through the front door and found me at her desk. The look on her face moved through several things very quickly. I told her what I had done, what I had managed to rebuild, that I knew the rest if she would just show me what I had missed. She stood in the doorway of her own room, looking at a person who had spent 4 hours rebuilding her work from memory. She sat down on the edge of the bed, looked at the ceiling for one long moment. Then she pulled the chair beside me, and we got to work. 6 hours. Her mind in my hands, and the particular wordless rhythm of 2 people who have been watching each other long enough to know how the other one thinks. She was extraordinary to watch up close. The way her mind built arguments, the way other people build architecture. Each piece load-bearing, nothing decorative, everything serving the structure. I had competed against her for 3 years. I had never actually watched her work. I had been missing something significant. At 5:47, she stopped mid-sentence. I looked over, asleep at the desk, head on her arms. The permanent slight tension she carried in her shoulders. The brace of someone who has learned to expect things to go wrong. Completely gone. I turned her alarm off, set another for 7, stood up quietly, took my jacket off and put it over her shoulders. Stood there 1 second longer than I needed to. Went to my room. Lay in the dark looking at the ceiling, thinking about a folded piece of paper in my desk drawer and a year of things I was still carrying alone. She destroyed the presentation. Came home that evening, settled in the quiet way of someone who has proven something important to themselves. 2 coffees on the counter. One slid toward me without ceremony. "Thank you. First time. Ever." We stood in the kitchen drinking coffee and talking about nothing in particular, and somewhere in that ordinary exchange, something shifted between us that neither of us named. We didn't need to. 3 days later, I left the email on the counter by accident. Had taken it out. I did that sometimes, couldn't fully explain why, and my phone rang and I walked away and forgot. Came home to find her standing in the kitchen, holding it. Back to me, completely still. The specific stillness of someone whose entire understanding of something has just rearranged itself. I stood in the doorway and told her I had known since week 1. The printer, the accident, that I hadn't been looking for it. She turned around, and what was on her face was not what I had expected from Mia Collins. Not anger, not defensiveness. Guilt, real guilt. The kind that comes from someone who holds themselves to a standard and has just discovered they fell short of it. So I told her everything. Denial, the paper, the agreement. Why I couldn't defend myself without destroying him. Why I'd stayed quiet through the entire investigation. Why I had never told anyone. She stood completely still through all of it. When I finished, the kitchen was silent. Then, quietly, "You protected someone who betrayed you." Not a question, just something she needed to say out loud to make it real. I told her she had done the right thing. That she had the wrong information but the right instincts. That the same quality that had made her file that complaint, the absolute refusal to look away from something wrong regardless of the cost to herself, was the same quality that had made her impossible to stop thinking about for 3 years. She looked at the counter for a long moment. Then she looked up, something that had been held carefully in place, maybe for 6 weeks, maybe for 3 years, quietly let go. She reached across the counter, picked up my coffee, handed it to me, picked up hers. 2 people standing in a small warm kitchen in the particular silence that isn't empty. Outside the city was dark and wet. Inside was the warmest the apartment had felt since October. I thought about a printer at 7 a.m., a folded piece of paper, a strip of tape down the middle of a living room floor. About the specific way the universe arranges things when it has decided something is going to happen regardless of what you think about it. About a girl who talked to her plants every morning. "Looking good. Keep it up. Almost there. Yeah, almost there." Her perspective is also on the channel she had absolutely no idea he knew from day 1. Hope you like the story and comment for more story suggestions.